It happened at 3:17 a.m. silently, without warning. At first, no one noticed, but within minutes, the world began to fracture. Banks froze. Airports stalled. Stock markets collapsed before opening. Hospitals couldn't access critical systems. Communication, gone. Every screen blank. No Wi-Fi. No data. No cloud. Just silence. Within hours, chaos rippled through cities, traffic lights died, GPS failed, security systems went offline. Governments initiated emergency protocols. Businesses shut down. Millions couldn't work, couldn't pay, couldn't even call for help. The internet, the invisible thread holding our world together, had vanished, and no one knew why. People assumed it would come back in minutes, then hours. But a day passed, then two. And by day 3, it wasn't about inconvenience anymore. It was about survival. And this was only 7 days. Imagine if it never came back. We live in a world stitched together by invisible threads. Every second of every day, more than 5 billion people are connected, working, buying, selling, streaming, learning, navigating, even falling in love, all through one single gateway, the internet. It's not just a tool anymore. It's the bloodstream of modern civilization. From hospitals managing patient data, to global supply chains coordinating shipments across continents, from financial markets where trillions move with a single click, to governments running essential infrastructure, everything is online. Even the food we eat, the water we drink, the energy that powers our homes, it all depends on digital systems linked to the web. Satellites orbiting above us feed live data to apps we check without thinking. AI systems adjust traffic lights in real time. Our phones, cars, banks, homes, schools, and defense systems, all of it runs on the internet. And we've built it so seamlessly into our lives, we've forgotten it's even there. Like air, like gravity. And just like that, we assumed it would never fail. But here's the truth. It's far more fragile than we think. A single point of failure could ripple through the entire network. And yet, we scroll, we swipe, we stream, trusting that this invisible world will always be here. But what happens when it suddenly isn't? What if, without warning, the internet just stops? Not for minutes, not for hours, but for days, a week, maybe more. No updates, no information, no connection, just silence. In that silence, panic begins to grow. Because without the internet, the world doesn't just slow down, it cracks. And that's where our story begins. The internet wasn't born as a global lifeline. It started in the 1960s, a Cold War experiment called ARPANET, designed by the U.S. Department of Defense to keep communications alive during a nuclear attack. It was simple, decentralized, resilient. But no one imagined it would evolve into the nervous system of the planet. As decades passed, what began as a military project became personal, then essential, then inescapable. By the late 90s, homes were wired. By the 2000s, commerce moved online. And now everything is connected. Not just our devices, but entire industries, governments, lives. But here's the problem. We never stop to ask, what happens if it breaks? Because the truth is, the internet was never built for this scale. It's held together by a delicate web of cables, satellites, server farms, cloud infrastructure, all run by private companies and complex systems that very few understand completely. A handful of undersea cables carry over 95% of global internet traffic. If one is damaged, rerouting begins. If many fail, chaos. A cyber attack targeting keynotes, a massive solar flare, a cascading system failure. It doesn't take much, and it doesn't have to be permanent to be catastrophic. A single week of global internet loss could cost the world economy over $7 trillion. But beyond money, it's about control, fear, misinformation, no communication between governments, no access to emergency services, no trust in the systems that hold society together. We built the internet to be our bridge to everything, but we never imagined it could vanish. And when it does, not because of war or weapon, but because of silence, we realize just how alone we are, and how unprepared. The first hours were confusing. People assumed it was just their router, a glitch, a regional outage. But then the silence spread, across countries, across continents. Cell towers weren't responding. GPS showed blank screens. Social media went dark. No emails, no calls, no news. Just digital void. Governments stayed quiet at first because they didn't know either. Behind the scenes, emergency meetings began. Was this a cyber attack? A natural phenomenon? Sabotage? No answers. Just questions. And outside, panic. Within 12 hours, ATMs stopped working. Payment systems froze. No Apple Pay. No credit cards. Grocery stores switched to cash only until cash ran out. People couldn't fill their cars. Couldn't reach family. Couldn't trust anything. Hospitals struggled to access patient records. Air traffic controllers lost live data. Even water treatment plants couldn't adjust chemical levels because those systems, too, are online. And then came the dark side of disconnection. Rumors spread. Wild theories took root, and no one could debunk them. In the absence of information, fear took over. In some cities, looting began by the second night. Pharmacies, electronics, food, police departments, overwhelmed and disconnected, struggled to coordinate. The thin layer of digital order peeled away. Most people don't realize how fragile the system is. There are over 1.2 million kilometers of undersea cables connecting our world. A break in a few key nodes can trigger massive data loss. And in this case, the failure wasn't physical. It was invisible, instant, and total. For the first time in decades, the modern world felt primitive. Not because of war, but because something we never questioned was simply gone. And when people are cut off from information, they don't just get scared. They turn on each other. Here's the part no one talks about. The internet isn't in the cloud. It's not floating somewhere above us. It's physical, tangible, vulnerable. The global internet relies on more than 400 undersea cables, thin, fiber optic lines no thicker than a garden hose stretched across oceans, linking continents. Just a few strategic cuts and entire regions go dark. And while most people think satellites would step in, they can't. Only about 1% of global internet traffic runs through satellites. The rest? It's deep underwater, exposed to earthquakes, anchors, even sabotage. In fact, there have already been incidents. In 2022, a single cable between Norway and Svalbard was mysteriously severed. Weeks later, another in the South Pacific. The official explanations? Vague. Accidental. But experts warned, this was a test run. Now imagine, what if multiple cables failed, all at once? Not broken, but disabled, or hijacked. And now, the twist, it wouldn't even take a physical attack. Cybersecurity experts have shown that targeted software injections into key infrastructure, DNS servers, cloud routing hubs, authentication protocols, could trigger a global blackout. Not by destroying data, but by scrambling trust. If systems can't verify what's real, they shut down. It's not about destroying the internet. It's about disconnecting us from it. And if you think that's impossible, ask yourself, how much do you really know about the invisible code that runs your life? The truth is, we built a digital world without a real backup. And now, with the lights out, we realize we handed our entire civilization to a system we barely understand. What if it never turns back on? In the last decade, scientists and cybersecurity experts have quietly raised red flags, warning that the global internet is far more fragile than most people think. Governments and tech giants are investing billions into protecting infrastructure, encrypted DNS protocols, decentralized storage, redundant routing systems. Some countries are experimenting with internet autarky, the ability to disconnect from the global web and run a national version, like China's Great Firewall or Russia's RUNET. These aren't just political tools, they're survival strategies. Meanwhile, researchers are developing quantum communication systems that could someday provide ultra-secure, unhackable links between networks. Others are exploring mesh networks, decentralized systems where devices communicate directly with each other, bypassing traditional internet routes. But here's the reality. These solutions are still experimental, limited, and often only accessible to military or high-security institutions. For the rest of the world, we're still relying on a patchwork system built decades ago, now overloaded, outdated, and stretched beyond its original purpose. And the deeper problem? No amount of technology can fully solve the human factor. The internet depends on trust, certificates, protocols, verification systems. If even a few of those break, everything else unravels. In 2021, a single configuration error at a content delivery network took down Amazon, Reddit, Spotify, In the New York Times, all in under 10 minutes. It wasn't an attack. It was a mistake. Science is trying to prepare for the next big collapse, but it's a race against time. And the question remains, can we really build a safer, smarter internet before something or someone breaks the one we have? Because in a world where connection is everything, disconnection is no longer just an inconvenience. It's a threat to civilization itself. At the height of the blackout, when the silence had stretched for days, questions began to surface, darker, heavier questions. Was this really a failure, or was it intentional? Some whispered of a state-sponsored test, a digital kill switch trial run. Others blamed rogue hackers, or a coordinated cyber war gone too far. But another theory, far more unsettling, began to emerge, that this wasn't an attack at all. It was a system collapse. Not a bomb, not sabotage, just overload. A warning shot from the infrastructure itself. And in that theory lies a brutal truth. Maybe the internet didn't fail us. Maybe we failed it. We pushed it beyond its limits. We fed it everything. Every photo, thought, transaction, secret. We let it replace memory, relationships, judgment. And in return, it gave us comfort, convenience, control. But progress always has a shadow. The more connected we became, the more dependent we were. We stopped learning directions, stopped carrying cash, stopped thinking for ourselves. Some experts warned us for years. Redundancy is dead. We have no offline backup. But we didn't listen, because connection felt eternal. Now, in the silence, another question haunts us. Did we build a tool or a trap? And yet, not everyone sees it as a disaster. Some call it a reset, a forced pause, a rare, painful reminder that nothing is permanent, not even the systems we worship. But for millions without food, money, or safety, theories don't matter. Hope doesn't help. The damage is real. And the scariest thought of all, the internet may return. But what we've learned about ourselves can't be unseen. The blackout changed everything, not just for systems, but for people. Families separated, unable to reach each other. Children cut off from education. Critical medical treatments delayed or lost entirely. Suicide hotlines went silent. Emergency responders worked blindly, without coordination. Supply chains collapsed. Food distribution slowed to a crawl. Within 5 days, major cities began running out of essentials. And beyond the physical impact, came the psychological one. Anxiety, despair, rage. People who had never known silence now feared it. Offices were empty. Skies quiet. No pings. No updates. No distractions. And in that void, humanity was forced to confront what it had become. A species utterly, dangerously dependent. We once believed technology would free us. Instead, we built something we couldn't live without, but barely understood. The global response was fragmented. Some governments tried to assert control, military curfews, rationing, emergency broadcasts via analog channels. Others collapsed into political chaos. Protests erupted. Currencies destabilized. New power structures began to form, not based on information, but on access. Whoever controlled even fragments of the old network held influence. And here lies the true danger. Not the loss of the internet itself, but what rises in its absence. Desperate populations, disinformation, radicalization, a hunger for leadership, no matter the cost. Some called it a new evolutionary threshold, that the species which built the digital world was no longer equipped to survive without it. That this was nature's way of forcing adaptation. But to what? The blackout ended after 7 days. The internet came back, but something in us didn't. And now, every ping, every signal, every online breath carries a shadow, a reminder that we were never in control, just connected. The blackout didn't just reveal a weakness in our systems, it exposed a weakness in us. We built a world where speed mattered more than understanding, where connection replaced community, where convenience became a substitute for resilience. And in those 7 days without the internet, we saw ourselves, not as creators of progress, but as prisoners of it. Now comes the question we've all been avoiding. What do we do next? Do we race back to comfort, rebuild the same fragile system, faster, shinier, more connected than ever before? Or do we stop, Rethink? Choose a slower, more intentional path? One where digital power doesn't mean human weakness? Some argue that the blackout was our warning, a final chance to change course before something permanent happens. Others say it was just a glitch, a freak event in an otherwise stable system. But deep down, we know better. This wasn't random. It was inevitable. We have a choice. We can continue feeding a machine that we no longer fully control, or we can evolve. Redesign not just the internet, but the way we live with it. With limits, with balance, with backup plans, with awareness. Because the next time it happens, and it will, we might not get 7 days. We might not get a warning. We might not come back. So ask yourself, is this the future we want to protect, or the one we need to outgrow? In the end, the internet came back. But the question that still lingers isn't, what if it goes away again? It's, what if we never learn from the fact that it did? Do you remember how it started? 3:17 a.m. A quiet night. A sleeping world. And then silence. Back then, it felt distant. Abstract. Like a scene from someone else's life. But now, maybe it feels different. Because this story isn't about a broken system. It's about us. About how close we live to the edge without realizing it. We trust the internet to wake us up, to guide us, feed us, protect us, connect us, and yet, we never ask what happens when it's not there. Not for an hour. Not for a glitch. But for real. For long enough to change something inside us. If this blackout taught us anything, it's that no technology, no matter how advanced, can replace awareness, preparedness, humanity. Because in the end, we weren't just disconnected from each other. We were disconnected from ourselves. I'll be honest with you. This story still lingers with me. Not because of the chaos, but because of how easily we could go back to pretending it never happened. Swipe, scroll, forget. As if connection makes us safe. But maybe it doesn't. So let me ask you, not as a narrator, but as a person. What would you do if the internet went down tonight and didn't come back? Do you have a plan? Do you know your neighbor's name? Could you find your way home without a map? Or would you, like the rest of us, just wait in the dark, hoping for a signal? Tell me in the comments, not what you think, but what you'd feel. Because this wasn't just a story. It was a glimpse. And maybe, just maybe, a warning.